expert. Rich, thank you so much for joining us on the phone. We really appreciate it. When you hear the words low oil pressure indicator on an aircraft of this magnitude, a CH-53E Super Stallion, what does that tell you about what these pilots were enduring in the moments before they had to put this down?
Well, they had an indication that told them they had a problem with their engine. It comes on before the engine quits and lets them know there's a problem. So they did exactly what they're supposed to do, find a good, safe place to put it down and check it out.
Rich, how long do they have once that oil light comes on before there is potentially a bigger problem to deal with?
Oh, it depends upon the engine, but it's just like your car. When your car oil pressure light comes on, you know, you've got time to pull over to the side of the road and check things out. That's the beauty of a helicopter. You can put it down anywhere as opposed to an airplane that has to have a runway.
Tell us, if you would, what are sort of the next steps? Obviously, we're looking at this helicopter on the beach right now. We've got lifeguards out there, firefighters, military members, as well as hazmat crews, and they seem to be, I know you probably can't see these pictures, but they're digging something up out of the sand and sort of putting it in these large yellow containers. What are the next steps for the folks involved with this process?
Well, the maintenance people are going to fix the airplane so they can get it out of there, obviously. They will then, in fact, have an internal investigation to figure out what caused the oil light to go on. The military has some very good reporting systems for all of its engines and aircraft. So they'll report that into a central data bank, and they'll know if they've got this kind of problem occurring or if it's something new and different that they haven't seen before.
Is there any indication as to how long it would take to fix something like this? I know certainly not knowing the specifics of what's going on there, it's hard to speculate, but how long does this kind of thing, you know, what kind of protocol do they have to go through to make sure that it is fit to fly? In mind, how much does where the water is play into their decision-making going forward if the water gets closer and closer as we get closer to high tide?
They have an engine run procedure where they can run up the engine on the ground and see if there's just, in fact, an indication problem as opposed to an actual low oil pressure problem. If there's an indicator problem, they can just change the sensor out, and that shouldn't take very long. I'm watching them right now with you, filling the buckets full of sand. I don't know what would have spilled out, maybe some fuel when they land. I know that some engines, when you shut them down, they vent a little bit of fuel, and that might have happened there.
When you have an engine problem, a low oil pressure indicator light comes on and you've got issues, what do you have? I mean, is it usually a matter of seconds of making a decision and putting it down, or is it minutes? What's going on inside the aircraft, and how long do they have when they see that indication?
It actually depends upon the nature of the leak. If it's a really severe leak, you're talking very short period of time. If it's just a low oil pressure situation, you might even have time to fly back home. But I think this pilot did the right thing. He put it on the ground where it was safe to do so, rather than risk trying to overfly some populated areas on the way home.
Yeah, what goes into the training behind that as far as finding the right place? You know, again, thinking about the potential for water to come up or where people are. What is the training for that particular scenario where you say, okay, I have to put this thing down pretty quickly. What's the best place to do it?
Helicopter pilots are pretty attuned to knowing where they can put the airplane down at any given time. And I'm sure that he just, like I say, he picked the best option. I'm sure that he's not too worried about the tide right now, and I think the maintainers will have time to fix it before the water is a problem.
As I understand, Rich, you were a test pilot for the F-15, is that correct?
That's true.
With aircrafts of this magnitude, I mean, is this something that you practice on, I would imagine, probably a regular basis? How would you practice or drill a scenario like this in a helicopter that's, as we understand it, the largest military helicopter in the U.S.?
It is, and it's got two engines on it. It's got some capability with one engine shut down, but again, he did the safe thing. In the F-15, I could fly on one engine, but once I shut one engine down, I was looking for the first runway I could find.
There's some pretty incredible pictures here, again, coming out of Solana Beach. Rich Martindale, we certainly appreciate your insight and your expertise this afternoon. Thanks for taking a couple minutes for us as we continue to look at live pictures here from Solana Beach as crews are trying to figure out.
Good coverage here.
Okay, thank you very much, Rich. Appreciate it. Crews are trying to figure out exactly what the problem is. As Rich said, is it a case of just a bad light, a bad sensor, or are we dealing with a situation for these folks who they actually have an oil leak? And, you know, looking at the crews behind the helicopter, you'd wonder if there is some oil that leaked out. Perhaps, as he indicated, that's just fuel that came down as they went down.
And stay with Fox 5 on your smartphone, also for alerts all afternoon on the military